Hi. I'm super excited for today's video because I love gushing about books that people don't really talk about, or books that maybe you haven't really heard of, and books that are underrated, books that aren't the popular books that everyone always recommends on social media. I love finding hidden gems, and then I love gushing about them because there are so many books out in this world, and I want to talk about the ones that I particularly really loved that I don't hear anyone talking about. Now, this isn't to say that no one in the world is talking about these books. It's just that I don't see these books talked about in my own mutual friends, in my mutual circles, on social media. These are books that I don't see many people talk about, discuss, recommend, but I love these books and I had such a great time reading these books, and I definitely think they deserve more hype, and I think they deserve more people talking about them. Most of these are older books, so books that not only came out in the past couple of years, but I also read them quite a long time ago that I want to resurrect and talk about again. Hopefully from this video, you will find some hidden gems. You will find some new books to read. You will find new recommendations. You will find books that you've never heard about that might interest you. I kind of want this to be the first video of a series and continue to make videos of me gushing over books that I don't really see a lot. I am breaking these books up into different genres. So if you're particularly looking for a specific genre, I will break these up into different chapters so you can skip to the genre that you are looking for. The first genre of books that I have for you today are romance books. You guys know I love romance. That is after fantasy, it's my favorite genre. The first book that I want to gush to you about is The Mixtape by Brittany C. Cherry. I'm sure you've seen a lot of her books now because she has, since the past few years, been traditionally published, but I don't see anyone talking about The Mixtape. I don't actually know if this has now become traditionally published or if it is in bookstores. I haven't seen it particularly in bookstores, and I don't really see anyone talk about this book, but this book is this book is so good. Brittany C. Cherry writes very emotional romances, a lot of emotional depth. A lot of them come with characters who are healing from trauma. This one for sure deals with that. You are following a character named Emery. She is a single mom. She works at a bar and she is trying to make ends meet. Again, she's coming from a very traumatic past. She's healing. She's trying to take care of her daughter. And then we have Oliver, who is a rock star, and he's this huge famous musician, and he's actually dealing with the death of his twin brother. And they meet because Oliver is running away from the paparazzi. He can't escape them, especially because he has been a bit incognito for some time dealing with the grief of his brother, and the paparazzi will not let him go. And so he is trying to lose this crowd that has now followed him, and he runs into the bar that Emery works at, and she actually helps him hide and escape from the paparazzi, and they form a connection and end up falling in love with each other. And it was so sweet the way that this romance ended up working out. Again, they both come from such traumatic backgrounds, and they're both healing from a lot of loss and grief. Their romance really persevered through all that. They were both very understanding and compassionate for the other. It was just such a heartwarming romance. Truly a representation of unconditional love. Not just between the romance, but also I remember the familial relationship between Oliver and his parents as well. And then his parents having a relationship with Emery and her daughter. And I vividly remember listening to the audiobook of this while I was in my car, and I was sobbing my eyes out. Yeah, not because of anything really devastating happening in this book, but just the emotions that these characters have and the inner turmoil that they're going through and how they are helping each other heal. It was just so beautiful and so emotional, and I really enjoyed this. So if you are looking for an emotional romance that's heartwarming with true unconditional love, The Mixtape, girl, this is where it's at. The next book that I want to talk about is Business Casual by Danielle Allen. Oh my God, I love Danielle Allen. I've read a couple of her books now. This happens to be my favorite one. We are following Imani and Trey, who have this very forbidden relationship because Imani and Trey meet one night, sparks fly, but Imani is preparing for one of the most important interviews of her life. She is trying to become the social media manager for this very large company, and it turns out that that Trey is actually one of the owners of the company. So very forbidden, but they cannot deny the attraction and they cannot deny the chemistry between the two of them. So much angst in this book, and I love any book that has angst where there's such a push and pull between these characters. You know that they're meant to be together, but because of their circumstances, they can't be together. So much sexual tension. They really fell for each other, and you could tell, especially with Trey, it was nearly impossible for him to stay away from Imani because he has such a desire for her and he wants to be with her, and he makes it known to her that she's it for him, and he will fight tooth and nail to get her. He would literally do anything to make Imani happy, and so good. I absolutely loved this romance. I actually haven't read a forbidden office romance in a really long time, and it's made me want to reread this forbidden office romance because I haven't read a good one in a while, and this was, I think, the last one I remember genuinely being really good. There was good character development, a really sweet, hot, intense romance. Yeah, this was it, guys. So if you're looking for a forbidden office romance, I highly recommend Business Casual. This was so good. And also just give my dog. And also just check out all of Danielle Allen's books. She has a really great backlist. I've read a couple of her books, as I mentioned, and I love her writing. I know she has been traditionally published with a series that I believe is a sports romance series, but give her backlist and her indie published books a try too, because they're really good. So that is Business Casual. All right, the next book that I want to gush about is Partners in Crime by Alicia Rai. And this, I actually remember I borrowed this from the library. I saw it on the new releases table when it first came out, and I had never read anything by this author. I'd never heard anything by this author, and the reason why this book came to mind to me is because the second book in the series is actually coming out this year, and I had no idea that this was the first in the series. And this one was such a fun romance. I rated it 4 stars. I remember really enjoying this, and I listened to the audiobook while I physically read it, which I think is the best way to go. But here you have a female main character. Her name is Mira, and she is 35. First of all, love a more mature middle-aged character. She has a stable job as an accountant, and she signs up for this dating app that is geared towards Indian American singles, and she wants a guy that is very boring and simple and is ready to settle down. She's not really looking to live a high intense life anymore. She did that enough in her 20s. She's ready to find someone that's going to live a boring life with her. She meets Naveen, who I believe is a teacher or professor, and he is living the stable, boring life that she's looking for. So sparks fly with them. They have a really great connection. And then she ends up kind of going along with him to a trip to Vegas because her aunt has suddenly passed away. And she goes to Vegas to sort of settle the will and take care of all of her aunt's affairs. It ends up being sort of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas type of adventure for Mira, because then she gets involved with some kidnappers. There's an art heist. She ends up partnering with some hackers to try and figure out what exactly her aunt was involved with. And Naveen is there for the ride. And it's the two of them engaged in this sort of cat and mouse chase. It was really fun and entertaining, very energetic. They end up going, like I said, on this goose chase around Vegas, and it definitely ends up being the opposite of what Mira had wanted in a relationship. It was really, really fun. There was a sweet romance, and there was also some emotional depth that I was not expecting in this book because, given the premise, I wasn't really expecting there to be anything deep about it, but there was some emotional depth, especially with the characters and, their culture being Indian American and a lot of expectations in their roles as a man and a woman in a relationship. So I really did enjoy that. There were also some plot twists in this that I was not expecting at all. At all. I remember being absolutely gagged when plot twists were revealed. This was such a fun ride, honestly. Such a fun romance. I definitely don't see anyone talk about this romance at all, and I think it's very underrated. I had such a fun time with it. If you're looking for a sweet romance with some action and some twists and turns in the fun Vegas setting, I highly recommend Partners in Crime. Definitely underrated. I enjoy this so much. The last books that I have to gush about in the romance genre is actually a duet, but they follow separate couples. I'm mentioning this as sort of one because they're in the same duet. So I'm counting it as one thing, but they're actually 2 books. And that is the Beautifully Cruel Duet by J.T. Geisinger. And I know J.T. Geisinger has been traditionally published now, and she's more known for her Love and Monster series. Is that what it's called? Queens and Monsters. That's the series that has been traditionally published. And I think a few of her other books have been traditionally published as well. But no one talks about these books. And this is a duet. These books follow 2 brothers, the first following Liam Black, the second following Killian Black. They're both sort of in the mafia, and it follows their romances, and I absolutely love these. I ate these up when I first read them. I think both Liam and Killian stand on their own, but they both sort of have that broody, dark, mysterious swag about them that I love in a good mafia romance. You know, I love when my heroes are dark. I love when they're morally gray, but they are both still so obsessed with their women. Yes, and I love that in both of these, the female main characters both had backbones and they would not let these men walk all over them. And I love that they stood 10 toes down on business. And both of these men respected and appreciated their independent women. Love to see it. Love to see it. Yeah, these were just fun mafia romances, and I haven't read really good, fun mafia romances in a really long time. I might be out of my mafia era now, but I feel like if I reread these, it might put me back into my mafia era, because I remember loving these so much and just eating these up. I rated these books both 5 stars. You know, don't take these are not meant to be taken seriously. You know what I mean? Just have a good time with them. And I wouldn't even say these are heavy mafia. They're like very much light mafia, but you will still get that, you know, touch her and you die tropes. And these were really funny too. Like, these characters are funny. And I remember the banter in both books, the banter between the couples being very, very, very funny. And I loved it. Really enjoyed this. Highly recommend this Mafia Beautifully Cruel Duet series by J.T. Geisinger. Okay, now we're going to move on to fantasy / mystery thriller books. I'm putting them in the same category because the books I have in this category kind of fall under both of those genres. The first book that I want to talk about and gush over is The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. I believe when this first came out, there was a lot of hype around it, but now that it's kind of died, I don't really see many people talk about it, but I really enjoyed this book. In this, you are following Nell, who is a cartographer, and her dad is actually a well-known and very revered cartographer in the industry, and they end up having an estranged relationship over an argument that had to do with a very old historical map. And then her father ends up dead. He is found with that same map that they had that huge argument over. And she knows that that map has something to do with her father's death. And then she goes on to investigate exactly what happened and how this map has played a part in her father's death. And she discovers that this map that she thought was absolutely useless and had no value is actually a super rare map, and there are people that are hunting for this map. And so she goes on a journey to discover exactly the meaning behind this map, how it ended up causing the death of her father. It has to do with her own personal history and her own personal ties to this map. And I didn't think that this was going to be as interesting as it was, especially because you learn so much about cartography and just how much culture and history is rooted within maps, and how they can tell a whole story about, you know, an entire group of people. This was definitely a labor of love for cartography. And I really appreciated that because it made this book very unique and very rare, and it still stands out in my mind because of that. There was also a hint of magical realism in this that I was not expecting at all, and it definitely caused a lot of different twists and turns that made me want to keep reading. I was at the edge of my seat wanting to know what was going to happen next, and God, this was so good. Such a fantastic book. I really lost myself in this book, and I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend this. So yeah, that is Cartographers. The next book that I want to gush about, it's actually a sci-fi book, and it's called The 22 Murders of Madison May by Max Berry. You have a real estate agent named Madison May. She's at an open house and she's showing a client the property, and he ends up killing her. And then you have a character named Felicity, who's a journalist for a newspaper that isn't really huge, but it's not exactly a local small paper. It's kind of like a mid-sized newspaper. And she ends up going to report on this murder of Madison May. And in doing so, she ends up finding the killer. And it takes her on this journey to all these different dimensions where this killer is killing Madison May in every single universe. This was such a unique and interesting premise, and I have never read a book like this, and I have never read a book like this since I read this book, but it was very fast paced, another cat and mouse chase type of story that takes place over several dimensions, different universe, different parallel universes. And I feel like in every universe that we were at, the main character, Madison May, had such a unique voice. She was different in every universe. She had a different life in every universe. And I loved that, you know, the author made it possible for it to be seemingly the same character, but completely different personalities in each universe, which I think was a hard feat to do, but this author was able to do it. And again, lots of twists and turns, fast paced, high action, really enjoyed it. I definitely feel like this is a book that if it was adapted into a TV show or a movie, people would eat this shit up. It was very entertaining, and yeah, really enjoyed it. Highly recommend. That is The 22 Murders of Madison May. All right, the next book that I want to gush about is Angels Before Man by Raphael Nicolas. And this is a queer retelling of Lucifer's fall from grace and his side romance with the Archangel Michael. Yeah. Yes. If the Bible was this gay, I probably would have stayed Catholic. Genuinely. Because this book, first of all, the prose, stunning. Stunning prose. Absolutely beautiful, lyrical, so many incredible quotes and moments that really made you feel close to God. I don't know, I know this is steeped in religion, but it's more really about spirituality and morality. You know, what is good and bad, what is right and wrong, and in whose eyes is that to judge? It shows you sort of how the all-knowing power of God is still susceptible to jealousy and ego and pride. You know, you need to read this. This was absolutely incredible. Arguably one of the holiest texts I've ever read. This rocked my fucking world. It really did. I highly recommend listening to the audiobook while you read this, because that in itself is a religious experience, to be honest. There is a quote from this book that I will never forget. All I wanted was to be loved, and now you've shown me that to be loved is to be broken. I'm gonna leave you with that. Angels Before Man. The next book I want to talk about is The Tangleroot Palace by Marjorie Liu. If that name sounds familiar to you, that's because she is the author of the very popular graphic novel series Monstrous. And if you can see, this is a very similar art style to Monstrous. And who is the artist? Sorry, give me 1 second, because I definitely do want to give them credit for this beautiful, gorgeous artwork. Sana Takeda. They are also, I believe, the artist for Monstrous as well. This is actually a short story collection, and I don't particularly really reach for short story collections because it's always a mixed bag of stories. You know, there's always going to be really, really great stories, but there's also going to be some mid, not so great stories. But in this short story collection, I was not expecting for every single short story in this collection to be banger after banger after banger after banger. Okay, let me tell you, there was not a single short story in this that I did not enjoy. I fully loved every short story in this book. It blends different stories of horror, fantasy, magical realism, mythology, retellings, all these different aspects that you would want in a short story to keep it entertaining and, you know, different, and each story is unique. This book had it all, babe. This book had it all. Even though they were short stories, they still packed a punch. There was still character development and emotional depth, and there was still, you know, action. There was still plot happening in this. Every single short story kept getting better and better and better and better. Honestly, I distinctly remember each and every single one of these short stories because of how good they were. I'm telling you, this is one of the only short story collections that I genuinely loved every single one of them. There was something unique and so special about each one. So I highly recommend The Tangleroot Palace. Please get into it. Please get into it, because I need someone to talk about this with. I haven't heard anyone talk about this book. I don't see anyone, you know, recommending it. So here is my recommendation. The Tanglefoot Palace. Right, the last book I have in the sort of fantasy mystery action genre is Assassins Anonymous by Rob Hart. This actually is a newer release. It came out, I think, in 2024. And this is the first book in a series. I love anything that has to do with assassins, killers, all that. I fucking love it. Kill Bill is one of my favorite movies of all time. If you've ever watched the movie Wanted with Angelina Jolie, love that book. Anything that has to do with assassins, babe, I am here for it. Okay, this one has a very unique and interesting premise because our main character Mark used to be one of the best assassins in the world. He used to get the biggest contracts. He was known as one of the big guns in the assassin industry. But there is a very traumatic and tragic event that happens in Mark's life that makes him question his career, that makes him question what he's doing with his life, and he actually ends up leaving and quitting becoming an assassin and joining Assassins Anonymous, which I'm sure you can already tell is basically an Alcoholics Anonymous, but for assassins. And he joins this group where all of these previous assassins kind of talk about why they are quitting, what led them to wanting to leave that business, and where do they go from here on out? What do they do with their lives? After one of the meetings that he has, someone tries to kill him. Now he's the target. You follow him through this book. He has to confront a lot of the ghosts and the, decisions that he's made in the past. They are coming back to haunt him. Yes, they are. They're coming back to kill him. Yep. I really loved the nitty gritty dark humor of this. I loved, again, that high action, fast pace, him trying to, escape death. And he has given up killing. So even though someone is chasing him, he's evading all of the people that are trying to kill him by not killing anyone. And as a former assassin, that's really hard. So he's also struggling with that inner turmoil because, again, he's questioning his morality now. There is a found family that I absolutely adored with the group of people that joins this Assassins Anonymous. Obsessed with that, and just seeing their interactions because they come from such different backgrounds, but they all have that one thing in common. But also seeing how they approach death and how they approach killing and, their own belief systems on, what is good and what is bad. I loved that dynamic as well. This kept me at the edge of my seat. The last 20% of this book, action-packed, plot twist after plot twist after plot twist that I was not expecting at all. If you like movies like Mission Impossible or, like I said, Wanted, Kill Bill, you will love this book, honestly. And it's actually the first in the series. The second book, Medusa Protocol, came out last year, and the third book is coming out later this year. I have an arc of it already and I'm excited to read it. But this is just such a fun action adventure assassin book. I absolutely love this. No one talks about this. You need to get on it. Really enjoyed this. We're moving on to the next genre, which is general fiction. I have a few books to gush about and talk about in this genre. The first book being Happy Hour by Marlo Granados. This is one of my favorite books of all time. As you can see, I tabbed the shit out of it. This is definitely a book that is less plot, just vibes. And the reason why it's one of my favorite books and why I resonated with this book so heavily is because I read this book right before I turned 30, or right when I turned 30. And this book is all about these two friends that are living in Manhattan in their early 20s, messy, chaotic, making all the wrong decisions, meeting friends, making friends, meeting people, hooking up with people, and just really living their best lives and thriving in their early 20s in a big city. They are just along for the ride. And the reason why I resonated with this so much is because this was my life when I was in my 20s. Is I lived in a big city with one of my best friends, and we were just out in the streets doing all types of shit, getting ourselves into questionable situations, and living life, living our best life, vibing. And that is what this book is about, truly. These friends are going out, they are broke, they're trying to make ends meet, but also, even when you are trying to make ends meet, you are still trying to live life and have a good time. And that means, like I said, getting yourself into very questionable situations. And I just really enjoyed the writing in this. There are so many good quotes and so many moments that I have like I felt like I had been in myself. It felt like the author had taken snapshots of my life and my diary from those moments of my life and published them into a book. And I feel like the author also captured moments of your life in this time that are very melancholy and emotional that you can't quite put into words, but this author explains it so well. And also just moments where you're kind of just sitting and watching the sunset and contemplating life. A lot of those types of moments in this book, and it resonated with me so much. It came at the perfect time when I was, reflecting back on my 20s as I was entering my 30s, and, kind of reliving all of the adventures and the craziness of my 20s through this book, and reflecting on it and seeing how far I've come in my journey as a woman from who I used to be at this time in my life and where I am now. And I appreciate this book for what it gave me. I really needed this book at that time. And I feel like it is such a good slice of life and good reflection for those of you who kind of maybe are feeling a little bit lost. I feel like you would really resonate with this because the characters are feeling that same way too. And it kind of is comforting and makes you feel less alone and less like, you're not the only one who doesn't know what they're doing, truly. So I really enjoyed that for this, and I don't see many people talk about it. And I think this is it captures such pivotal moments in your life that almost seem mundane, but they are some of the most profound moments that you will have in your life. And I think this author captured those moments perfectly. So that is Happy Hour. The next book I want to talk about is a book that I actually have made tabs for because I want to reread it and annotate it, and that is Mika in Real Life by Emiko Jean. This author actually has many YA books out. I think she is primarily a YA author, but this is one of her adult books. I have never read any of her YA books, but I really, really enjoyed this book, love this book so much. I still think about this book to this day. And this book is about a 35-year-old woman named Mika, and in her mind, her life is a mess. In her mid-30s, I think we can all kind of relate to that, right? She just ended a relationship. She has a roommate at 35. She feels like she is always just going to be a disappointment to her Japanese parents, which if you are an Asian American, I feel like you would know exactly how that feels, regardless of what your age is. And she just got fired. So yeah, her life is up in flames, right? And of course, at the most inconvenient times, life will throw another curveball at you, and she is approached by a young girl named Penny, who happens to be the daughter that Mika gave up for adoption 16 years ago. Her daughter wants to connect with her birth mom, and she is trying to figure out who she is by discovering her roots, which is why she goes to Mika to help her find that. And Mika, not wanting to show to her daughter that her life is in complete shambles, kind of lies about her life. She tries to make it seem like she has her shit together when she doesn't. And then there is actually a bit of a romance with the man, Thomas, who is the adopted father of Penny, and he's a widow. So there is a bit of a connection and some sparks fly between these two. And it's a beautiful story of self-discovery and, putting the pieces back together of your life with people that you didn't know you really needed. A lot of healing in this, and very heartwarming emotional story with Mika connecting with her daughter again, the romance that she has with Thomas. I really love this book. I really, really did enjoy it. And you sort of see Mika come into her own, even though she's 35, and you would think she has her life together by now, but she doesn't. And it's beautiful that reconnecting with her daughter and this romance kind of helps her heal and helps her get her life back together. Really, really enjoyed this. I love the writing in this. There's a lot of humor, a lot of depth, and it's just really sweet. I don't see many people talk about this, and I think it's such an underrated feel-good fiction story that many people would enjoy if they only knew about it. So yeah, that is Mika in Real Life. The next book that I want to gush over is Fractured Soul by Akira Mizubayashi. It is actually a book that is translated into English from Japanese. And this book, if you love classical music, if you are a musician, you need to read this book, okay? This book starts off back in the 1930s in Tokyo, and you have this young boy named Ray, and he is watching his father, Yu, who is part of a quartet, rehearsing for a show, and then the military police come in and end up smashing, use violin, and he is arrested and taken, and Ray never sees his father ever again after that. Ray happens to escape this because of a lieutenant who, you know, grabs the violin and Ray and helps him escape. And then you follow him now in the present day in Paris, where he now lives, and now he goes by Jacques. And he is now following in his father's footsteps and has become a classically trained musician as well, a violinist, studying music, but he still always has that sort of lingering feeling of, you know, what happened to my father. And then he meets paths with another violinist who happens to be connected to the lieutenant that helped save him when he was a young boy. And it kind of helps him confront his past and gives answers to the questions that he's always had. And this was such a beautiful story that weaves music and the love of music, and also, you know, a journey of self-discovery and coming to terms with a very traumatic past. This is a very short book. I think it's under 200 pages, but it definitely packs a punch, a very emotional punch. It starts with such tragedy, but it ends in a very heartwarming way and with such a hopeful ending too. I just love the way that it, you know, blended culture and music and language, and the love of music too is so prevalent in this book. The author's writing beautiful, and the translation of it beautiful as well. So really enjoyed this. Again, if you are interested at all in music or classical music, I think this is definitely a book that you must read. It was very heartwarming. I enjoyed it. I don't see literally anyone talk about this book. I've never seen a single soul talk about this, but I really, really enjoyed it. That is A Fractured Soul. Oh my God. This is another book that I need to reread, especially with summer coming up and my international travels coming up. I need to reread this because I'm in the mood for a feel-good friendship type of book. And this book is exactly that. I am going to gush about No Reservations by Cheryl Lister. You guys, fucking pick this book up. Okay, let me gather myself. So this book follows a group of friends, 4 girlfriends. We have Joy, Diane, Rochelle, and Yvette. And they've been friends since they were kids, and now they are all in their mid-30s. Some are married, some have kids, some are divorced, some are going through things. Yvette ends up getting sick, and she is prepared for it, but her best friends are not. When she passes away, her final gift to her girlfriends, oh my God, I'm getting emotional. Her final gift to her girlfriends is an all expenses paid trip to Jamaica. It was a trip that they had been talking about wanting to go on for their entire lives, but they had never gotten to go because life, they had kids, they had jobs, they had careers, things happening, and they just never found the time in their adulthood to go on this trip that they'd always wanted to go on. And unfortunately, it sucks that the 3, Joy, Diane, and Rochelle, are going is because of Yvette passing. The trip actually comes at a perfect time because each of the 3 friends are going through something, and they're all at a crossroads of what to do with their life, how to proceed further. Through it all, regardless of what each individual was going through, the friendship in this, the solid, unconditional love that you would only find in other women, in your girlfriends. Oh my God, that was the true heart of the story, was the friendship. The way that these women were truly ride or dies for each other, the way that they would drop everything for the other person, regardless of what was going on with their children, their husbands, their career, their jobs. They were truly there for one another in a way that, again, you would only find in female friendships, truly. There is so much love in this book, healing from grief, from loss, the way that these women have to hold each other up. I said this in my review when I first read this book, that this is the quote, "We were girls together" in a book, because truly they were girls together. And this made me cherish my best friends and my girlfriends in my life even more, because I know if any of this stuff happened, this is exactly how my friends and I would take care of each other. And oh my God, I'm getting emotional, but like literally this is truly just girlhood and female friendships all wrapped up in a book. So heartwarming, very, very emotional, but so worth it. One of the friends, I forget who, is it Rochelle? Yeah, Rochelle has a romance with a man named Warren. And Warren? My man, the way that Warren worshipped the ground that Rochelle walked on, I was not expecting to get a sweet and seductive romance in this, but girl, Warren, Wow. 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 But yeah, God, I love this book so much. It was a 5-star book for sure. But if you want to read a book where female friendships is the center and heart of the book, please read this. It was so heartwarming. It was so just such a book filled with love. And it really is just like, there is nothing better than female friendships and women, truly. So yeah, that is No Reservations. The last book I have for you guys is actually a nonfiction book, and I only have one one book to recommend because I don't read much nonfiction, but I do feel like this book is very underrated, and I think more people need to read this. And that book is The Groom Will Keep His Name by Matt Ortile. And Matt, if you are a millennial or if you remember growing up with BuzzFeed, Matt was featured on a lot of BuzzFeed videos. The most notable one I can remember is the one where Dr. Mike is introduced. It was one of the first times I remember seeing Dr. Mike step into like becoming kind of a celebrity doctor. But Matt Ortile is in the thumbnail of that video, and he was so funny. I think he represents all of us if we ever met Dr. Mike in that video. But he was very prominent in a lot of BuzzFeed videos, and that's how I remember him. But I think he is also a comedian, and he is in the media space, and he wrote this book. This book is about him growing up in Manila and all of the sort of stereotypes he heard of what life was like in America, and then moving to the US and sort of figuring out becoming a model minority in America as a Filipino immigrant. He is also gay, and so there's a lot of stereotypes put on him being a gay Filipino man, and also sort of shedding his Filipino identity and culture to assimilate into this country. It has so much heart and humor in this too, and I loved reading this because, you know, he is Filipino, so there was a lot of cultural nuances that I found in this book, and I related to a lot of what he's gone through, and I've seen myself and family members and friends in this book because of what he's been through and just, you know, where he comes from. It also is a lot about grief because he lost his mother, and so he talks about that and sort of her influence on him coming to America and what sort of idealistic life his mother thought he would be living here in America. Again, I don't see anyone really talking about this, but I think it's such an important story to tell, especially when we are in a society that immigration is such a huge topic right now, and having stories like this represent, you know, not only is he an immigrant, Filipino immigrant, but he's also gay. And so having that representation, those intersectionalities of his life being represented and his story told, I think is so important. I just really enjoyed this. It was really funny. I related to a lot of things, and I don't see anyone talking about this, but I think this is such an important piece of literature that not many people know about. I love this book. As you can see, I've tabbed it. There's so many memorable quotes in this, and lots of humor too. Matt is a very funny guy. And if you've seen any of his videos in BuzzFeed, he's really, really funny. And that humor and personality he has shines through this book. So yeah, I highly recommend it. That is The Groom Will Keep His Name. All right, those are all of the underrated hidden gems that I have to talk to you guys about. All of these books I want more people to know about. I want more people to read them. And if you end up reading these books and you don't like them, I don't ever want to know about it. Literally, don't ever tell me. Keep that opinion to yourself, okay? But if you read any of these books and you love them, let me know so we can gush about them together. If you have read any of these books, please let me know because I need more people to talk about these books with, okay? So that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.